this comes from the brain of Ruben Portillo, who is our friend for one segment and one segment only.
He's one of our engineers now.
Yes, and you used to hear him here on the Get, right?
Sure did.
When he was on the ones and twos. Now he's on the ones and twos for all of your remote broadcasts for the fan.
He gets to travel all over to the great events that we cover, like training camp, spring training, some of the other things. He's living the life.
Oh, yeah, and he's an absolute networking machine, and now I think he's putting out more content than he did when he was on air.
Look at
because he's giving me segment ideas. And
I got to give you guys more credit than this. You, James, and Ruben all graduated from where?
UT Arlington,
There
baby.
it is.
Mav up.
Go Mavs.
So, man, we're taking over. I love this because when I started here, it was UNT through and through.
That's the nosebleeds.
Yeah.
This is the UTA takeover that we need.
Yes.
Lance Ligas will be sure proud at the very end of this.
Oh, absolutely. And can't wait for that to hopefully grow in the future. But I think he's actually doing more for me and for us on air than he ever has now, because he's interacting with us and he's giving us topics and he's asking us really intriguing questions. And to peel the curtain all the way back, I'm recording some sports reports for TSN a couple weeks ago, and he comes walking in, and whenever he sees me, he always comes and says hi, but he was like, I was talking to Kevin Hageland, and I had a segment idea that I think you need to run. I was like, okay, give it to me. I'm always open for content. He said, I think that the formula to winning championships in any pro sport has changed. I'm like, I'm listening. So he asked me, does going all in on one particular area of your team that you know you're good at and you know you have a foundation at the expense of the other side, is that the way to go now?
In other words, go all in on defense instead of offense, or offense instead of defense, or whatever the area you say this should be our specialty.
Yeah, and so he said everybody wants to be the best team in their sport, and there's no question about that. But what if your team was the best, the absolute best by a wide margin at one area, but they weren't that good at another? Or would you be okay with that? Because he mentioned some relevant teams right now. The Oklahoma City Thunder. It's a great shooting team, but they suck at rebounding.
Right.
They cannot rebound at all. The Minnesota Timberwolves, until like 3 days ago, great defensive team, but they didn't shoot much. You know, they're somewhat conservative in the regular season offensively. And then he mentioned like the book on the Dallas Mavericks until the trade deadline. Awesome offensively. They can shoot the lights out. But up until they made those acquisitions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, they were abysmal at times at defense and just subpar for the most part. The Orlando Magic, awesome defensive team, but they cannot shoot at all.
Yeah, that's why they need Paul George.
The Indiana Pacers, great offensive team,
Rick
horrible
Carlisle.
defense. Phoenix Suns, star power, no depth. Then he mentioned in the NFL, Baltimore Ravens and Kansas City Chiefs.
Defense.
Great defense, but their wide receiver core is suspect.
And both of them have great quarterbacks.
Yeah, and then he mentioned San Francisco 49ers. Great overall team. They don't have an elite quarterback. And then in the world of baseball, Major League Baseball, he says the Texas Rangers last year, great offense, but their bullpen would give you heart attacks. And the Arizona Diamondbacks, who, hey, they were the second place team, great base running and great speed, great athleticism, but they couldn't really hit. Like, they couldn't get on base. When they got on base, they would create runs better than anybody else.
Manufacturing those runs.
But they struggled to just get to first base. So I posed the question to you, CA, to the Tolos, 877-881-1053. Are you okay with your favorite teams going all in at one area and sacrificing everything else?
No.
Because that seems to be the book for a lot of other teams that have had success. Like you think about the Kansas City Chiefs this year. Their defense was, nobody thought they were going to be that good this year, but their defense was top of the league.
That's because they brought back Jones like they were supposed to.
And of course, they have the best quarterback in the NFL by a wide margin in Patrick Mahomes. But outside of Travis Kelce, who's not getting any younger, who was he throwing to? Their running game,
here's
not
the deal.
great.
Here's the deal. They decided not to give Tyreek Hill his big money. They knew he was going to want to try to get $30 million, and they said, you know what? We will spend that money elsewhere. It wasn't like they were saying, oh, salary cap. They don't do that like this local team in Frisco. But what they decided to do is we're not going to pay him that kind of money. And so they traded him off to Miami. So in a way, they've had a quality wide receiver. We just didn't have one this year. You see what I'm saying? It's like they just said that's one area we're going to have to just work around. At the same time, they were almost foolish and not worked around their defense and not bringing back Chris Jones. I mean, he had to hold out and get his money after game one, sitting in the luxury box. As far as the Ravens are concerned, I bet they wanted to have a better wide receiver core. And as far as the Texas Rangers are concerned, you're talking about the bullpen. Here's the deal. In their pitching staff, they thought they had the best pitcher in the game until he got hurt, Jacob deGrom. Then they said, let's go after another one. They got Max Scherzer. The bullpen, they could not get the guy that they wanted. Remember, they wanted that guy from St. Louis? They couldn't get him.
Yeah, Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, Jordan Hicks. So, again, it's not like they weren't trying to – it's not like they said, well, we're just going to not worry about the bullpen. They were trying. They just couldn't get the deal that they wanted. So I think it would be foolish for any team to just say, oh, we're not going to try. We're going to just make our defense even better. I mean, if you even look at the Ravens again, go back to the day when they were winning Super Bowls, they didn't have quality quarterback play. Guess what? They drafted Lamar Jackson, not because he was a top 10 pick. He fell to them foolishly by all these other teams, but he fell to them. It wasn't like they were – you follow what I'm going? They were like, okay, we're going to make sure that we're known to be in defense first, but it wasn't like they were ignoring their offense. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. I don't think teams ignore certain aspects of the game. You look at Oklahoma City. I bet if they had a bigger defender player, or not a bigger, but they had a quality rebounder, that's what they would do. In fact, Oklahoma City, he should know this. They're in better shape than any team in the NBA as far as having a plethora of first-round picks where they don't have to draft a person. They could trade those draft picks and get the exact person that they need. You see what I'm saying? They can bring in somebody that they want. So, Ruben, even though it's a nice question to contemplate, I don't think it would be smart for any team to just ignore a certain aspect of their squad.
And I think it varies from sport to sport because I think you could get away with it in the NFL. I really do. And I don't think defensively, though. I think on offense. I think if you just went lights out on offense and you're averaging 45 a game, you could probably work your way to a Super Bowl. Now, do you win it? I don't know. But you would be a playoff team every year if you were able to keep that core of, say, 5 superstars on offense for 5 years. Quarterback,
couple of wide
receivers, maybe a tight end, and then a running back.
Right.
If you were able to keep them in a solid offensive line, not saying like
gotta have an offensive line,
all pro, but like a solid offensive line, then you could probably be a conference championship team every year just because of how much parity there is when you get to the NFL postseason. I mean, nobody had the Green Bay Packers looking that good in the playoffs this past season, at the expense of this team that we said we're not going to say their name. But, I mean, you've seen it enough in football to where I'd say I wouldn't hate it. I'd be like, I'd probably try to supplement on defense if I were you, but I understand. In other sports, I don't think it would work just because you do need almost a wealth of assets and personnel in these other sports like baseball. One superstar won't win you a game.
No.
You need an entire lineup. You need a bullpen. You need a rotation. Like, can you be lacking in areas? Yes, the Rangers showed it last year with a pretty bad bullpen that really solidified itself in the postseason. But in the regular season, you were gripping on to your seat as tight as you could at the end of games. Even if you had a 3-run lead, you were like, nope. Can't trust it.
Can't trust it.
So you can get away with that stuff, but it's because the rotation was really good at one point. The lineup got really hot at various points.
You had 6 All-Stars at the start of the game.
Exactly. So in baseball, it can't just be a small group of guys that win it. So I don't think it works in baseball.
It also helps in baseball. You have a really good manager.
That's true, too, because decision-making is huge.
It's huge. I think it's more impactful than any other sport because there's so many games.
And then in the NBA, I think you would truly have to luck yourself into it. Like, I think it would be possible if you just invested in all offensive players you could luck yourself into, because in the NBA, all you have to do is have 4 bad games and then you're out. Same in baseball. But, just because of the way the playoffs work, if, you go against a really well-rounded team, you suck on defense and you're great on offense. If that well-rounded team has a bad defensive effort for 4 games, you move on. So I feel like you could luck yourself into it, but in basketball, I don't think that's a good way of doing business.
I don't either. And back to he gave the example, the Phoenix Suns have the 3 superstars and have no depth. I don't think teams are going to be that dumb anymore. In other words, you don't need 3 like you did when Miami Golden State had a little bit more than 3, but they drafted those guys. You got to have depth. As soon as they put that team together, I'm talking about bringing in KD with Book and then adding Bradley Beal, I was like, they have no depth. They can't go anywhere. In my mind, I was like, that team is not going anywhere. I didn't care where they were in the standings. I'm like, they're not going anywhere. And it's not even about the injury history of KD and Bradley Beal. It's the fact that literally who else can help them? Because you know what? There's 5 guys out on the court at the same time. And in the playoffs, there's strategy involved. And you can take away a couple of people.
Well, I think that... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's why I don't think that's a sound decision to have just 3 superstars anymore in the NBA.
I think the conclusion we got to in this topic is that there is no linear way, and there probably never will be.
Right.
To win championships.
Because you know what?
Pro sports.
Coaches make adjustments.
Yeah.
And what happens is if you go one way and the league is going one way, somebody said, we'll just go a little bit different, and that going a little bit different suddenly becomes the new way to go. Because you don't have players that can match that up anymore, whatever the way is.